Good morning, traders. This is a no trade recap. I did attempt to take a trade this morning, but I just didn't see anything that I thought was worth getting into. And I think this video is still going to help you because it's probably more important to know when not to trade than it is to know when to trade. Because when you take a trade when you shouldn't, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose money. And if you do that repeatedly, you'll lose all your profits pretty quickly. So this is around 4:03 a.m. I've got the top gainers list, pre-market top gainers list, organized by volume. The highest volume stock being traded is Sundial, which is a really large float. I think it's like 500 million or something. Let me get that up really quick. And I don't like that. There's not as much potential for movement. Oh yeah, so 750 million. And you can see in the pre-market, I think the highest it got was 10%. Right now it's about 6%, so it's not really moving much at all. We're already a half hour into the pre-market, so I didn't even look at that chart. I don't need to look at that chart. It's just not worth trading. Not short-term like I trade. And then you had SOS. That was really the only one that I was considering. Xnet I also looked at, but one of my rules for the pre-market is to only trade the top 3 volume traded stocks, and that's just to give me a little bit better chance of getting into a stronger stock, because volume is everything. So but I did have Xnet up because it was close and it was doing pretty well, and it was a low float, I believe. Yeah, 65 million. SOS was even lower, 28 million. So those are the only two that I was looking at. Now, the problem with SOS was that it made this big move in the aftermarket and then sold off before the aftermarket closed, and then 4 a.m. is right around here somewhere, and it's way away from the aftermarket high. So that already makes me much less interested in it. It has to get to the aftermarket high, break it, and then pull back to give me an entry. So it's got a long way to go to do that. Now, Xnet, keep in mind, was the number 4 organized by volume on the top gainers list. It just barely broke through the aftermarket high, and now it's pulling back. So I think at this point I'm considering an entry, but definitely feeling skittish about it based on the fact that it's number 4. I really shouldn't be entering it. So I just keep going back to the top gainers list to make sure that nothing else popped up and nothing else did. Let's see. So this thing finally, does like a really strong pullback, but this break through the high of aftermarket is not that strong. It only went up like 2 or 3 cents. So even now, now I'm thinking, well, my entry would be basically a reversal play at this point. So these candles established a high, so I did consider getting in for the break, like at 448. And I'm also noticing what's going on over here, and the fact that this is the number 2 traded stock makes a strong argument for just waiting, to see if this thing actually gets back to the aftermarket high. Again, checking the pre-market top gainers list, Xnet is still number 4. So one possible entry here on Xnet is after this candle forms, this one here breaks out above that high. It's not the best setup at all, because you've got this kind of wedge pattern right here, and then this candle drops down below, so you got a lower low. So that in and of itself, indicates some weakness. So buying for the break of this candle is risky, but the fact that this candle's small reduces that risk, because your stop loss would be right here. But also this thing was a bit spready. Let me see if I Okay, right now I'm on it. Actually, at this moment it wasn't. It was 2 cents. But I saw it like go to 5 and 7 cents. So let me just see where those prices are, because I'm looking at the bid was 442. Right now, looks like the spread. Yeah, the spread's jumping up. Yeah, so if you could get in at 442, that's not a bad play there. Just because, again, considering this is a riskier trade, but this candle is so small, 442, so 7 cents. So you need to see 14 cents to get 2R, and if you're in at 442, that is, 456. It's a little bit early. 456, and it hits it right here on this candle, definitely on that one. So that's a nice little 2R trade right there. But I just didn't like the way that this thing was setting up, and that this was a lower low. But that trade would have worked. Then the one that I was really considering, and I marked out a few lines on the chart, you can see there, so I'm not lying, is that because when I was looking at these candles, I was thinking about getting in at 448 for the break of this level here. Finally hits 448 there, but I'm still hesitant because it's the number 4 stock, which isn't really in my trading plan. It has to be number 1 volume wise, or top 3 volume wise, and so it would essentially be breaking my rules to take an entry on this. So I'm just trying to be better about following my plan and my strategy, not forcing a trade just because there's nothing better. That's really a good habit to get into, because I've done that many times in the past where, well, this is the best thing there is, let me just look for an opportunity on this and get in, and you do that and it goes against you really hard. So sometimes it works out, but not often enough to make it a regular habit. So now let's look at, so if my entry was 448, then so the idea was to get in at 448 on this candle, and the stop would be the low of the previous candle at 435. So 2R would be 474, and this is the highest it got, 470. So I mean, you could argue that hey, that's pretty close, and it may still get there because it hasn't hit my stop yet. Although the volume is really dwindling, I wouldn't want to be in this thing right now, because whenever you see these dashed candles, that's an indication of no volume, and you see that here. 2,000 shares, 700 shares, 300 shares. If you're still waiting for that 2R target, you're going to be sitting here a long time. It may go, but it may be an hour from now, and it could go the other way just as easily. So the longer you're in it, the more stressful it is, and the more likely you are to just jump out. So I'm not really sorry that I didn't take a trade here. The only one that we just talked about was maybe for the break of this candle, which I honestly wasn't even thinking about when this was playing out. So that was really the only halfway decent trade, but again, that would still be breaking my plan because it's not in the top 3 volume in the pre-market. So it's really important to stick to your plan and not make exceptions. All right, so even though there was no trade here, I hope you guys learned something. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you at the market open. Take care.